If someone called your office right now, what experience would they get? If I looked at your calendar for the next week, what would it say about your business? Because here's the truth. Your phone is the front door to your firm, and your calendar is the economic engine of your practice. And if you haven't intentionally designed either one, they're quietly designing you. Today, we're going to talk about why the way that your team answers the phone, the way that you schedule your clients' meetings isn't administrative, it's strategic. Because when your phone and your calendar run you, you lose control of your time, your focus, and ultimately your future. The way that your firm handles access, who gets through, when and how, quietly determine your capacity, your professionalism, and the value of your business. And today, we're going to show you how you can take that back by design.
This is The Rare Advisor, a show for financial advisors who want to build and grow their practice through the use of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. The Rare Advisor is brought to you by the Advisor Protocol Consulting Team at USA Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of The Rare Advisor. I'm your host, Aaron Grady, and with me again is my seems to be all the time co-host, friend, co-worker, certified Pareto coach, and practice management consultant at USA Financial, Allan Oehrlein. Allan, thanks for joining me again today.
Great to be here. As always, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, Allan, the reason I asked you to be back today is we were having a conversation during our last episode where we were talking about time allocation, the need inside of an advisor's practice to align elements of importance inside of their practice in a weekly calendar to make sure that they are carving out time for those things that are most important. And as part of that conversation, one of the things that kind of raised its head is what's next? What's the next step in executing something like that inside of a practice? And you and I know this. And so it made sense to kind of step back and share this with our audience, is the idea of operationalizing this across the team. And to do that, we typically follow the process around using a defined telephone script for answering the phone and a defined process for how you set appointments or meetings. And so the idea there is, if you think about it this way, most advisors think of the phone and the calendar, for that matter, as admin functions. The reality is the phone is the front door to their firms, and their calendar is the engine room of their business. Every call shapes trust. Every meeting shapes capacity. And yet most firms let both of these things happen by accident. And so today, what I'm hoping we're going to do is show how elite practices design these two moments so that their clients can feel cared for, their teams can have clarity, and the advisors themselves can regain control of their time.
Right.
So with that kind of table setting, let's kind of step into the strategic framework of what we're talking about, really the why this matters. Most advisors think that enterprise value is built through AUM, revenue, and growth. However, buyers and successors evaluate something deeper. Is this business dependent on the advisor, or does it operate like a firm? Every time a client hears he's in a meeting, can I take a message, or gets squeezed into a last minute appointment, unfortunately, advisors are reinforcing a personality-driven practice.
Right.
Enterprise value is built on consistency and capacity. Chaos at the front desk and chaos in the calendar erodes trust. It trains clients to expect interruptions, and it turns the advisor into a bottleneck, which is something that you and I have talked about and run into many times. You and I have set into complete consulting sessions with advisory practices where the support staff and team, when we start uncovering the layers of opportunities, one of the things that often raises its head is that the advisor is the bottleneck in the process because everything flows through them. And so
excellent point.
I think this is kind of important that we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. And it's a problem that most, if not all, advisor offices encounter at some point. When we talk through this topic and the subject, Pareto teaches that processes create freedom and consistency, which also creates more confidence. So when the phone and the calendar processes are undefined, everything becomes urgent. Everything becomes reactive to both the advisor and their entire firm. So think about it this way. Every time the phone rings, it's a brand moment, and really anchor that thought in your head and in the heads of your entire staff. Every time your phone rings, it's a brand moment. Every time a meeting is scheduled, look at it like it's a strategic decision. Okay. So let's shift gear a little bit to the specific telephone protocol, right? So that's why we say that with the telephone protocol itself, every call is answered again within 2 rings and uses the word unavailable, right? Unavailable. It's a single word that protects the professionalism, the mystery, and also just the authority as well. And just by having a scripted greeting itself sets the tone and confidence for the firm. So there's a lot of power in the word unavailable. You don't need to be searching for an answer. If someone calls in and says, hey, is the lead advisor available? I need to talk to him. It's urgent, whatever it happens to be. You don't need to try to get creative with what they're doing. You don't need to tell them, hey, they're golfing, they're on vacation, they're doing research. Unavailable couples.
They're at the doctor.
They're at the doctor. Yeah.
Nobody needs all this detail.
It's unnecessary, and it can get awkward in some scenarios depending on what the activity is, right? So there's great power in the word unavailable. It covers everything without having to over-explain. It preserves that professionalism, and it protects the advisor's time as well. One thing that you mentioned before is that it kind of helps. It removes that need for improvisation. It removes that what's the term, emotional leakage that can come forth from whoever's manning the phones, right? And it tells the clients that the firm is in control.
Yeah. I love that. I love that thought around the unavailable. We use the term all the time. The words matter. Even something as simple as interjecting unavailable, which covers a myriad of possible scenarios, creates a place where now you can start training your clients to understand that they're, we talk about the idea of the gatekeeper, right? Yeah. And that first line of defense to protect the most valuable asset, time, for an advisor. And so interjecting something as simple as unavailable, now I can create a standardized script that I don't have to have one for every different thing. It can be as simple as, they're unavailable. Can I help you? Is there something I can help you out with? So I love that thought process of the simplification of it, but the power that it brings as well. And understand, this isn't about hiding the advisor. This is about designing access instead of surrendering to it, which is, if the whole idea of that, if you raise your practice to be a spoiled, impetuous child, we talked about that last time. It's my business is not running me. I'm running my business, so these aren't specifically, they are scripts, but they're not scripts in the sense of scripts. They're signals. What we're really doing is the phone protocol says your clients are valued, the advisor is protected, and the team has been empowered, which I think that's another big key concept. The idea of, for high leverage situations and for elite teams, the ones that really excel are the ones that have, where the advisors or the leadership has empowered the team to do their jobs.
Right.
So where it doesn't all have to wait for a decision or an answer from the advisor, the support staff has the empowerment to handle things as needed. And so the way this would evolve in this situation is, so the phone call would come in and unavailable. Understand that this doesn't operate in a vacuum. There is an art and a science to it. So top tier clients, they probably get served immediately when possible. So the unavailable is this the first line of defense? Can I help you with something? No, I really need to talk to the advisor. Well, let me have them call you right back. For other clients, they're still going to be cared for, but you're going to be able to set expectations. This is a perfect opportunity for teams to start implementing things like service standards. So we guarantee or we strive to return phone calls on the same day or within 24 hours or whatever it is. By setting service standards, we can lean into a saying that we use all the time is people get upset when they know something. They get upset when they get surprised. So setting clear guidelines, people know when to expect a call. It doesn't have, unless it's an emergency, so this is the opportunity to have a defined time for when the advisor is going to be able to return calls. So if we circle back to what we talked about last time, we talked about time allocation. This is why in an advisor's week, having those time slots, those time allocated slots in a calendar day where you can return an email or you can return a phone call. Now, those are the things where these things become a reality without them running your calendar. So what I would share with advisors are, if you want to take a takeaway from this conversation is, here's the challenge. This week, rewrite your phone greeting and your advisor unavailable language. So make sure that how they're answering the phone, now your team is using unavailable. Make it one script, one standard where we're going to eliminate the improvising. This is what we're going to do. So start using this and let's see what the impact is. So we talked about the telephone script. Let's shift gears and let's talk about how we use this kind of same process of protecting the advisor's time to shift towards how do we schedule? So what is our scheduling protocol for whether it's meetings with clients or meetings with others? Understand that as an advisor, your calendar is not your diary.
Yeah, right.
It's a capacity model. Every firm touches or teaches, I should say, clients how accessible or unavailable the advisor is. The scheduling protocol says that your time is finite, energy matters, and meetings are intentional.
Yes. Yep. And that's a great point. So when you're looking at the calendar and just figuring out what kind of processes you want to implement and what kind of buffers you want to throw in there, it's important that you limit the meetings to 3 days a week, cap them at 3 or 4 per day, and also enforce those buffers. I know we talked about that on the last call, is the importance of having those buffers just to avoid burnout and being able to prepare and follow up if need be on anything after the call, after the actual meeting's done with. Again, you're just essentially protecting your sanity, but it's more than that, right? You're also creating a business that can be transferred, one where success isn't completely reliant on the term of, I think you coined it on the previous call, that heroic availability, right?
I love it.
The expectation isn't that you're going to be available at all times. Think about, liken it to a doctor's office. If you're following up with your doctor and you want to reach out to them and ask a question, when you call into the hospital, you're not expecting to get the doctor. The doctor's too busy. The doctor's doing other things. He's meeting with other patients. He's doing research, whatever it happens to be. Chances are you're going to get the nurse's station. You're going to leave a message with them, or they're able to help you out going forward. If you are available 24 hours a day or whenever they call, this can kind of serve as a deterrent. The client starts to think, wait, why is the advisor available every single time I call? Are they really that short on business or nothing else better to do than sit around and wait for my call? Again, so that's where it can sort of become that deterrent. So this is sort of how a practice becomes a firm, right? Those strict guidelines that you stick to. Appointment days, they're going to be defined, right? It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yep. Meetings start at 9 and you're going to end by 4. Maximum meetings per day that you're going to implement, 3 to 4 meetings a day is usually what we see. And then throwing in those buffers, 30-minute buffers, absolutely nothing back to back at all. And then typically a lead time as well. If someone calls in, they want to meet with you, looking out, 5 to 10 days, if not 2 weeks, this is the first available time they have, and it's 10 days, 2 weeks out.
You gave a lot of great detail there as far as how we execute the implementation of these strategies. If I could touch on a couple of things, the idea of the deterrent, it's not just a deterrent for the clients. uber availability, which, you and I have both dealt with this with advisory teams where, well, yeah, I'm just super available for my clients, which is great. And I understand that service model. However, it's not scalable. And then at the end of the day, the practice that ends up buying your firm, if that's not their model, how does that impact retention on that sale?
Great.
And then all of the other elements that you shared, the when meetings start, we're pretty hard and fast on the appointment days, but understand there's some art and science to some of this. Mm-hmm. And the lead time is important too. But I think all of that speaks to what we were talking about a moment ago of training your clients.
Yes.
The power in, as opposed to saying, well, let me check, let me do this. It's defining the next available day is this day. I don't need to get into, well, no, I need Monday. Well, the next available is Tuesday at this time. It's, we can be the director of what happens on the calendar. And now we train our clients to when things happen as opposed to being reactionary to things. So what I would speak to advisors and what I would share is understand, again, there's some art and science to this. And as we get into this with teams, we evolve this to fit their specific practice. But understand, these aren't restrictions. These are, what we're doing is they're capacity guarantees.
Yeah. For
clients and for you. It's allowing you to do more with less by, as we talk about, with order comes liberation, right? Mm-hmm. And so if I was to challenge an advisor that's listening to this today, I would say to start, pick one calendar guardrail, whether it's a start time, an end time, a daily max number of calls, and install it into your process this month. Now, if you're real aggressive and you say, hey, this sounds great, let's just go ahead and put it all in place and starting next week, we're going to do that. But I think for most teams, it starts with pick a couple of these things and start utilizing those, get it into a rhythm, and then kind of step on from there.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, when we talk about these, the impact that this approach has, understand that these protocols don't create distance. They're about creating trust and scale.
Yes.
Where your teams feel safe when they have rules that exist. Your CSAs stop guessing as to, is he available? Is she available? When's their next? We have a defined track. We know what's happening. And as an advisor, you get to stop apologizing. You don't have to say, sorry, I wasn't available on this day, or sorry this, or sorry that. Is we have a process and we follow it. And what it does, end of the day, ultimately it optimizes your availability so that you are appropriately available, and it frees up more time so that you can create a higher personalized client experience.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the cultural impact that you led to is huge. You want your team and everyone that works underneath you to enjoy coming to work. You don't want it to be, a reactive environment, because if you're in that spot where it's reactive and you're putting out a fire here to put out a fire there, it's going to trickle down to the rest of the team. And you're right. When you establish those rules, the CSAs can stop guessing, they can stop worrying, and worry about things falling through the cracks at the same time. So when the rules exist, it's better for the entire environment and the whole culture of the firm.
I love it. Too often though, many advisors resist this because, again, it feels restrictive.
Yeah.
But the reality, as we said, with the order comes liberation. I think truly when advisors and practices and teams kind of settle into this, they're going to find out that it frees the advisor from being the bottleneck, and it's going to free the team to act more with confidence. And then it's also going to free your clients from uncertainty.
Yeah.
Clients don't want unlimited access. You mentioned it a moment ago, Allan. They want reliable access, and reliability comes by design. You're not becoming harder to reach. You're becoming more intentional about how you're reached. And so again, if I was going to add another challenge or talking point or another thing to kind of push teams a little bit on this call, I'd say start by asking your team one question this week. What do our phone and calendars currently teach our clients about us?
Yeah.
Let me say that again. What do our phone and our calendars, our phone answering protocol and our calendar protocol currently teach our clients about us? And I think it should be eye-opening.
Yeah.
Great firms don't rely on heroic effort. They rely on designed experiences. If you want a practice that someday becomes an asset for the firm, one that can be transferred, scaled, and even sold, you got to stop running it like a personality and start designing it like a firm.
Yep.
Your phone is the front door to your practice. Your calendar is the engine. Design them, or they're going to end up designing you. When your phone is intentional and your calendar is protected, you don't just reclaim time, you elevate trust, consistency, and enterprise value. Mm-hmm. This is why, on a previous call when I had Duncan on, this is what we mean by when we talk about client experience by design, or the always on advisor. Mm-hmm. It's not about doing more. It's about building something that works, right, even when you're not there. So I know we covered a lot today, Allan. We touched on a lot of things, and we just barely scratched the surface on the scripting and messaging for the telephone answering phone call, and then the protocols for setting appointments. But for those of you who are watching today, if you want a copy of the telephone answering and meeting scheduling protocol we referenced, complete with the scripts, the standards, and the implementation guidelines, go ahead and reach out to us here at USA Financial, and we'd be more than happy to share a copy with you. So again, thank you, Allan, for being with me today. And for those listening, thank you again for listening to another edition of The Rare Advisor. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and subscribe. We always like those subscribers. And as I always say, when the why is clear, the how becomes easy. Never lose sight of your why.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.